enjoyed it. That was really
Oh,
good.
thank you.
Yeah, I think she
Yeah,
does a. Huh?
I saw your comment. I was like, oh, Todd.
Oh, did you? Yeah, I enjoyed that one. I don't get to watch entire shows, but that one I did. I thought it was really good.
Oh,
Yeah, y'all both do a good job of with what you're doing. I like it.
yeah, she's great.
So what's been going on with you?
Ah, a lot.
Yeah, I figured. I figured. I figured as much. I know I had a couple of discussions in the last 30 days with a couple of uh, women, and it reminded me of when you were telling. In fact, I told the story again. I probably told that story like 10 times. When the mantid came in, and you're like, "What about my emotional well-being?" They're like, "Yeah, like
Mm,
that. That's what it's like." Yeah. but but yeah, I know you're lit. So and God was. I think that we probably did something in October, maybe, maybe.
hmm.
Yeah, like September. Well, really
Yeah.
July through I guess November 22nd was just such a hellhole. I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean it was such a just, there's no word for it. No, you can't say squeeze. We were squeezed, eye of the needle. You can say that, but it was like everywhere I looked. And the great thing was, I started doing. See, I came back from the whole Soulogy Fest thing, and I want to say it was first part of September. So 3 weeks September, all of October, and the first right up until I left in December, I left Sedona. The shows were incredible, and they still are. People are coming on; they're being so human and so humble, regardless of
Mm-hmm.
what they bring to the table. And I'm like, okay, you only get that from what we just went through, whatever that
Hmm.
was. What was that? Do you know?
Um, look, I sit most days and analyze energies and try and make sense of it, and I come at it from like five different angles.
Mm,
But to me, like what seemed to be occurring, especially around November, because it was thick and heavy, and it felt the energy was very restrictive, suppressive, almost suffocating. It was like thick density that you just couldn't shift or navigate or move or get clarity. And you get one foot and then you'd be like, you can't, it felt like the energy stuck. It was clingy and it stuck. And it was like every time you got a breath, you're like, oh, and then it would, it permeated. And I felt like that was part of a big collective clearing that we went through.
mm,
And to me, I've been looking at the timelines and date markers from when, like March, like January, February, March of 2020. And then it was like we completed this big 3 year loop, which was like what I was being told was like the global initiation. And it was like revisiting, like, sorry about my my words, but reliving the fuckery on all levels and cleaning that up. And I think a lot of that cleanup happened in our own bodies, in our own vessels, in our own experience and reality. Um, and then I just remember it was around November. It was like around November 11 to 13. Oh, I'm not great with dates, but it was around that time. And I felt this huge energy coming through. And I went, oh, here we go. And I was like, I have not experienced energy like that probably since 2018. Um, and I was in the middle of a session actually, and I felt it come through, and I thought, oh, I'm not going to sleep tonight. There's just going to be some big energies playing out. And sure enough, I went to bed and I lay down, and I was just being shown all these visuals of these big timeline collapses that really, if we look back, it was like the beginning of 2020, but it was going back further. It was going back into ancient civilizations where things fell, and we were getting this opportunity to revisit so that we could clear the pathway so that those timelines, they were never going to play out, but it was almost like we had to get to this tipping point and then move through that. And since that shift in what I experienced in November, then it was like the floodgates opened and all this new energy was available. And then it only continued to build in momentum. And then there'll be like a couple of days where it dips back, and then you kind of pass back into the old energy. But I kept talking, it's like a slingshot. It's like temporary, you get pulled back, and then you come further through. So, yeah, it's just been a lot. But then I think through December, especially for me, it always feels like a very galactic time. Sorry, my camera's...
It's okay. Right when you said galactic time, it was doing that. So it's okay. There's code and everything. That 11th through 13th, was that, what month was that?
November.
Okay.
So 11/11.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's when things started to change. You're right. It wasn't the 22nd because it started in the summer and it went through, because I remember people talking about 11/11, a 40-day corridor to 12/21. Not to mention the 10-day corridor to 21/11, and then also the 10-day corridor 11/21 to 21/12, which was the end of the 10 year 20. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But which was the end of the 10 years of the Mayan thing. But you said something that now that's why I asked you, because it happened earlier this past month. I started getting all of these. Like you said, it wasn't just in this life. Like, it wasn't just back to 2000. That was just like the last, part of it. And I kept going, why is this happening? Like, I've gotten those kind of memories over the years, but then I realized I was being taken through a life. It was like a life review of these previous lives, and they weren't really about my life in that life. It was about the whole experience as a collective. And I thought, wow, this is weird. And I had something else happen like that in the last few days. That was the same type of thing, and it's where I had to step into spaces I didn't want to, such as specifically a rapist, a child molester, and whatever else could be worse than that. Whatever, it wasn't murder or anything, but it was all sexual distortion related, I guess, or trying to get me to come to equilibrium. And I noticed, obviously, I'm resisting it, and I've always resisted it because it's presented itself before, because it all comes back to you. And then I was like, okay, I'm in, because somehow I just knew I had to go. I had to do this. You can't go any further. And then to be in that space and actually feel what they feel. And I don't mean the pleasure. I'm talking about all the stuff that goes in our heads and would have been in our heads, say prior to 2012 or whatever. But yeah, same kind of thing. Like, you had to own it, obviously on an individual level, but it felt very, very collective, just like those life reviews into the past lives. They seem to be about Atlantis and what we did or didn't do, and Lemuria and whatever it was.
Speaking of which, oh no, you're triggering so many memories. I want to come back to the sacral, the sexual distortion, because that's been coming up a lot. That's been like highlighted in my space. I went through like 2 weeks of that in January. Working through the energies of it, and then of course, like, I go through a whole cluster of clients that present with the same theme. So I'm like deep in that, deep in the trenches of that, like back to back to back to back. And so I kind of see the themes that are playing out. But talking about the life reviews of different civilizations, Egypt's a big one for me, but I've always had a very strong connection to Lemuria. In the beginning, when I started to go through my really abrupt awakening, I woke up in the morning. I often get messages when I'm waking up,
Right.
and um, and it was just a whisper, and it said, Lemuria, Lemuria,
Mm.
Lemuria. And I went down this whole rabbit hole, and I have, off and on for many years, and the process that I'm going through, I traced it back to Lemuria, that women would go through a lot of interdimensional conception in the civilization of Lemuria. And that's where we first experienced it on Earth. So it's like women who are going through a similar process to me are just tapping into an ancient aspect of something that they've already done before. And that was like a whole download that I got many years ago. But I have never been able to access my own memories of anything that I've witnessed in Lemuria itself. Like I have a feeling of it, a resonance, but no specific details like I have with other sort of past incarnation. And in December, I had a friend staying with me, and she said, "Oh, let's go watch Avatar." And I said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." I was really excited. I want to go watch Avatar, the second one that came out.
Mm.
And probably over the last 4 or 5 years, I have had many practitioners. I've actually asked to go back to review Lemuria through like regression or some type of session. And every time a practitioner has got me to that point, I have like a full traumatic breakdown, and they have to pull me out of that space. It's like the doors open, I start to witness a few things, and then it's like the trauma imprints that I experienced or witnessed start to come up, and I become uncontrollable in just this emotional outpouring. And so it becomes so intense that they have to close it off and then bring me back out. And that's happened multiple times. So anyway, fast forward, I go watch Avatar and I'm sitting there, and I was like, oh my goodness. The visual that I have not been able to tap into to
Really?
watch. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Have you seen it?
No, but what was it? What was the visual that you picked up on?
It felt like I was watching in higher definition, like the whole the whole Lemuria story playing out. Like it wasn't the entire thing, but there were definitely threads of that. And I became so uncomfortable. I could feel my whole nervous system like starting to overwork itself. And I came home and I had to shut myself off in my bedroom for 12 hours. And I went through this whole process of like almost energetic imprints releasing from my body. And it was very uncomfortable. But yeah.
You see,
Yeah.
this is the stuff that needs to be talked about on the mainstream. These things that are happening to people all over. God, that's
Yeah.
wild. And do you have any like takeaways from it? I mean, was it essentially clearing and coming into equilibrium, etc.?
I think so. I think that was one of the biggest ones that I hadn't gained access to, and I always knew, obviously, it's not time. It's not time.
Right.
I felt like it had to like unravel out of my energy field, and there was a lot of tears, and there was a lot of just a lot of high emotion,
Now,
and
go ahead.
well, I went with a friend of mine who also has very strong connections into Lemuria.
Yeah,
And
no
her
wonder.
reaction was probably even worse than mine. I held it together while we were still in the cinema. I was just like containing it all, but she was just complete mess.
Wow.
Mm.
I read a couple of
And my
people make
dad,
posts about your
huh?
dad. What happened with your dad?
My dad was with us, and he was looking at us like, "What's wrong with you two?"
Doesn't he know he fathered a white witch, alien, whatever you want to call yourself? Um, that's yeah. So this. Oh, okay. So is sexual distortion tied to that, or was that another trigger?
I think
Another,
so. I think it's all very much interwoven, interlinked. Like a lot of the time in sessions, I've often seen or heard stories about around the time of the fall of Lemuria, there was a lot of Lemurian beings that were held captive and used like to reproduce
yeah.
and use with their DNA. And I have some very graphic visuals when I tap into that. So I think it's individual to the soul's journey. But I think what was coming through about the sexual distortion, I'll try and overview this. But what I was noticing was there was a lot of common themes that were coming through, and it has to do with the back of the sacral.
Oh my
So
God. Are you serious? Let me hang on a second. Does it look like this?
hmm
Synchronicities abound. That was an image Morgan found after we did a session last night. We actually put it up because we were told stop the session, put it up. We're both trying to come back into our human, so we did. It was 47 minutes. We just put it out for people, just put it out with that picture up. But yeah, go ahead. This is great.
Oh, I've seen it in many different ways, but ultimately, what it is there is like a plug-in or a thread that goes into the back of the sacral, and what it does is it almost distorts the sacral. So it distorts creativity, life force, energy, sexuality, and it's like anytime someone wants to expand and become their full expression of self and use their creative life force energy, it almost like squashes it. It's almost like you can raise to a certain frequency and then it's like capped. So I've seen this in various different ways. It can come through trauma, through sexual trauma, and it's almost like there's this distortion in the field that runs intergenerationally.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
it goes and it almost highlights the trauma of the intergenerational experiences. Not always, but I always see the lineage aspect in the sacral as the mother's lineage, and it's God. There's so much I could talk about. I'm trying to write it all down because I've seen it in so many different ways. But what I saw was, for some, and this is just one example, a highly evolved being chooses to come into Earth and incarnate. And it's almost like it's picked up and detected that there's a highly evolved being coming in to incarnate to do something masterful. Let's say it like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like then there is a set of, then there's many ways to look at it. You can look at it from interference wise, but I think ultimately we always choose these
Right.
experiences that we go
Right.
through. So, um, but it's almost like this thing that attaches and it almost siphons energy out and it distorts the reality through the reproductive organs, through the sacral energy.
Yeah.
So people can't fully access their creativity
Yeah.
or that nurturing, loving, emotional. I think as human beings, our greatest gift is our creativity and our emotions.
Yeah.
And it's almost like it dulls it down so that we can't fully experience it in its purity. It's like diluted or distorted, and whether that's through sexual trauma as a child, whether that's through the sexual trauma that's been interwoven into the ancestral lineage that we're purifying, and it's. Whew, I saw these energy strands that kind of come in through the back and then they connect up through the spinal column.
Hmm.
They go up and they almost latch into the heart, so you can't fully
Okay.
feel the only word that's coming through is the expansive love vibration. It latches in at the back of the neck which is obviously the throat, but that's also the vagus nerve. And then I could see it go up and over like a cloaking over the top of the head. So it also disconnects from source.
But it's and it's originated and initiated from that back of the sacrum.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
entrance point.
So
But
this
it
is
has all these different offshoots
right,
that
right.
kind of
Yeah,
run
of
havoc
course.
in the body.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, just like the sciatic network. You know, all those nerves coming out from that place. Um, God, this is fascinating because that picture. We go into session. She starts channeling, and we're both because I mean the energy's just been so supportive of connecting. I don't know about everybody else, but the last 10 days, you know, it's been amazing. Uh, so it became an activation. Some of what you're talking about came out in that session and the previous two, I think.
Yeah,
Now,
cool.
not the same exact stuff, not the same exact description, but definitely like an implant type thing. And of course, the heart being shut down, something with the back of the neck. I can't remember what she said. We record these things. I should listen to them. But so that. But last night, I'd have to go back and listen to it. But it's like this is the seat of the soul. This coccyx
Yes.
area, right? This is the seat of the soul, and it's been shrouded. And I can't remember the specifics of what that all entailed, but I remember her talking about the like you talked about those that came here with a certain something by design, like experienced like say you or her, like she experienced a bunch of trauma through her childhood, which like activated or solidified that whatever that implant or whatever that attachment or thread, whatever that is. So this thing, which she talked some about that. There was some other stuff said I can't remember, but it was that was blown open. So the entire chakra channel was now fully flowing. I felt it in my body, hugely, and I saw an octahedron form around my groin area, and just start spinning. And it stopped, started spinning the other way. Thought it was going to take me with
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And but prior to that, the night before. Now we're not discussing this. This isn't a meditation, follow the leader kind of thing. This is we were just sitting there, and I don't know what was happening at the time, but I started having this electrical energy, very very substantial, go up my leg, my right leg, my masculine leg. At the same time, I didn't know it. She's having the same thing happen on her left leg.
Yeah.
So I think I started talking and said, hey, there's this, now it's accumulated in that area you're talking about. And then it started going down my left leg. But what really happened was, for me, this moment when the two met or something. Like, I don't know, was that my divine marriage honeymoon? I don't know, but I immediately had what felt like implanted in me a yoni. And I said to her, am I a hermaphrodite now? Because, you know, she's like laughing. But she went on to explain. Okay, so that I think is important. And then when I played the thing last night as a live, and I'm listening to it, I started to remember that two of my 5 siblings have actually had surgery. Right there, my dad was a medic. He was a medic in the service. He wanted to be a doctor, and so he knew a lot of stuff. And I remember asking about it. He said that's the reptilian tail. So I thought, wow, why am I thinking of this right now? And you know what I mean? And like I had all these life reviews where I was the bad guy, and so in other words, we've accepted the reptilian, something like that. Now the channel's blown open, and it's all that stuff that you described, which that whole thing about stepping into the rapist, stepping into the molester, that actually started about 3 years ago. I had a lucid dream, and we were in Lemuria, and it was me, Morgan, and another lady. probably you. And that's when, in the physical form of Anunnaki or whatever, that's when the distorted masculine came in, and immediately they took the women and enslaved the men. So we immediately we were demasculated. So when these life reviews came back, the first thing that happened is I was the Anunnaki dude. I wasn't Todd with Morgan and the lady. I was the other dude. So I came in, lived that life, and it immediately extrapolated out to the contemporary times where I had to be the rapist, and I had to be so, and for that to happen to you, and it must be in the water. To me that's a great sign, because I agree with
huge.
you.
It is huge.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of visuals in my session. Like, honestly, Todd, almost nearly every session I've done back to back for a whole fortnight was showing me this.
Really?
And so I have recorded so much data, and it's very hard for me to condense it and explain it without going into very personal details. But I love correlating data, and there's always a trauma around these highly evolved beings being in utero, in the mother. And then if you look back through the lineage, there's always some sort of chaos or trauma that happened as they were trying to come in. And I always see that there's an additional chakra on the female that sits between the sacral and the solar plexus, which is like the womb chakra. Okay. It's like an entrance point that the soul comes in while the mother's pregnant, or through the period of gestation, and the soul can come in and out as it chooses until it comes up to the time of birth. And I think that line had been sort of corrupted or hijacked in some people for good purpose, right? There's almost like a dilution of that energy so that we can come here and shift it and change it, and reclaim our essence as sovereign soul beings. But it's I don't know, I just get so excited because it was almost like showing a shell or a casing that kind of looked reptilian in nature that was being removed as this unplugging was occurring. And so it allows people to move forward without having that resistance or pullback. And I think we can all relate to that on our journeys. Is we get so much momentum and movement forward on a project, on whatever it is that we're working on, and then all of a sudden there's this, like, everything just stops. And it's like, what I was showing was that was that implant, if you will, that was at play, sort of controlling and manipulating it so that we could chip at it constantly to eventually get to this point where we could disconnect from it entirely. And I think that in itself holds a lot of data, because it goes into Orion Wars. It goes into such ancient stuff, whether it's like here on the planet, and it's basically every time there's been I can't think of any other word but fuckery.
That's the only word. We love that word. We love that word at Soulogy. Fuckery. Love it.
But it's also been a gateway that other beings and entities can almost come in. When people sometimes get overtaken or overridden by other energies, and you can see, I don't know if you've ever experienced it, but I've witnessed.
Oh yeah.
Well, it was kind of also, it had so many purposes, really, but it was the main point where people could get overridden. And I think ultimately, and also I think it pumped through a frequency through the body, through the nervous system, that keeps people in fight or flight. Yeah. And but yeah, anyway, there's so much to it. But when I start to see patterns of so many people getting to the point of being able to disconnect from that, then I know we're in for some exciting times, because I truly believe that this year is going to be a lot of people stepping into their power in ways that we haven't even comprehended. And it's a lot of working with the creative life force energy in whatever way that looks like for the individual. And so if we can now kind of shed that, disconnect from that, dissolve the water, whatever, then we have full reclaiming on
Yeah.
our soul essence and
Yeah.
our creativity, which is our most powerful
Yeah, I
life
agree.
force.
And I think our emotions are like our unique fuel. Like that's um, the was the weakness, now the strength. But like when you combine, uh, how would you say it? I can't really say aligned emotion, but when you can align your emotional state with your creativity,
Mm.
that's like,
That's
you
the
know,
powerhouse right there.
yeah, yeah, because so much of it, has been from sadness and loss, which is still deep emotion, beautiful songs, beautiful art pieces, beautiful books. But now we're doing it on the high end, on the other end of it,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which is really cool because it's like a trinity energy. It's a win-win-win type of expression for everybody. I'm watching it, and I feel like, Soulogy is a small part of it. Like even with the music that we're doing, just it's not really that. It's people stepping up and doing
Mm-hmm.
what they do and being themselves. And
Mm-hmm.
it's crazy, crazy cool. It's so crazy cool. And I guess in essence, because we never really saw that, we've never seen that,
No,
and we're
not
starting to see it.
not.
Yeah. So imagine there's definitely you can definitely see the correlation between that and what I just put up there a minute ago that you're talking about. That
Mm-hmm.
section, the seed of the
Mm-hmm.
soul that got blown out,
Mm-hmm.
cleaned, purified, whatever.
Yeah, purified. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But we had to go through that releasing, like what you were saying about all the sexual distortion, and it has so many components to it, um, to be able to access that level of light and energy, life force energy.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just thinking about the the whole thing about can you say something or is it too personal? So I had during this time, one of my kids comes to me and tells me something. You know, this happened to me when I was a kid, and it wasn't anything major. It wasn't I don't want to make it out to be like that. So it was, and it happened in the middle of all this, and of course it was related to survival. Probably, yeah, I guess it's one and the same at some point. Sexual distortion, whatever that whole thing is, right? Uh, and so there was two things. One, there was an immediate understanding that it came in with us, so to speak. In other words, this
Mm-hmm.
kid knew it was part of the lineage. It wasn't
Yeah.
anywhere on the landscape in, let's say, in the family. There was nothing
Mm-hmm.
there. You know what I mean? Like it came out of nowhere, so to speak. But instantly recognized that it was a lineage thing. This is her, not me. And then the other thing that impressed me was here we are talking about it. I'm 61, you're whatever. And we've been doing this a while. You've been doing this a lot longer than me, probably. And yet, this person in that frequency band, which is, we kind of see as the younger people, accepted it and moved on just like that.
Mm-hmm. So quickly.
And I
Yeah.
was like, wow,
Mm-hmm.
that's amazing
Mm-hmm.
to think that there, and we've talked about this so many times with the work you do, but to think how many are coming every day, and words or no words, whether they can speak or count or even walk, does it really matter? These kids are right. I mean, it has to really move that pendulum, move the football, whatever you want to call
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it.
It's incredible to see how rapidly everything is being worked through so quickly. I think that's just like it speaks to the accelerated times that we're living in now. And I think that I think hats off to a lot of the front runners, people who've been working through these heavy energies, big processes for a very long time. I think that's cleared a lot of space so that we can be in accelerated time, so that people coming online now can go, get it, okay, yep, work through it, move through it, and as a collective, we shift very rapidly in that space.
Mm. Yeah. And what about like, have you been having any activity?
Yeah, I think you mean in regards to my own birthing process,
Yeah, just like
or like,
your because it's such a. I mean, I think it's important because I think what happens is that we're all like universal mutts. We all come from different places. We all have something else to offer, and it's in listening to or going, wow, this is what happened to her. This is what happened to him. I think it opens up memory within ourselves, or at least gives us access to the beehive, or whatever you want to talk.
I think, yeah, a lot of development has happened on that front, especially through the whole sacral purification process. Um, it allowed me to access something fully that I hadn't been able to get a grasp on. Um, I don't know how much I'll go into that, but I think in the process of writing, because I got to basically the end of my book in November, and then that was when the big timeline shift occurred, and I was told you cannot touch it, because it was almost like I was, through the process of writing, there was so much energy that was coming through me, and because I was talking about the past and where I am currently, it was almost like it was reworking some of those timelines and healing them as I had experienced them. So it was like healing the traumatic experiences that I'd gone through and refining them to bring me into this place. And I got to a certain point in the book and everything just blast wide open for me. And I was told that I can't touch it. Like I have to leave it and allow this energy to settle. And I have gone through probably more experiences and connecting than I have since the beginning. Like
Really?
it's almost, yeah, yeah. And so then I felt like I came into a completion of that yesterday. And then I was told, okay, you can now finish it.
Holy crap! There's another synchronicity. Holy moly!
Mm,
Wow.
mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
wow. Yeah, and I was listening to you thinking because I already made that comment. I mean, and I made it like doing the show like this. I remember I was like, this is 7 days in a row. I lay down,
Mm,
boom. If I'm
mm,
with Morgan or not, boom. It's like that. It's just you're so far out there, and and then of course all the clarity of the multi streams and the connections. Like even with everything we just talked about, even with what you said about being cleared yesterday,
mm,
right? I
mm-hmm,
mean, if I look at all of it, let's say since even like November 11th, the divine aspect of it, like the divine episode aspect of it, doesn't seem near as big as like the original Wake Up or other times Morgan and I had different experiences. But if I look at the whole thing
mm,
as a one time period, there's never been anything close to it,
mm,
especially once we got into January. I can't even
mm.
believe it's over. I can't even believe it's over, really.
January's been so long, far. Like, have you noticed that time's been very distorted? Like,
Yeah,
more so than ever before? Like,
absolutely.
mm,
Absolutely.
mm,
Absolutely. To the point where it's like, You can ask me what day it is. I never know. Okay, but it's way beyond that. I saw somebody writing about it yesterday. It happened to me a few days ago. I leave. I come back. It's like 3 hours are gone. I had one the other day where it went backwards. I know it was 8 o'clock or 10 o'clock, and it was now 2 hours earlier. I'm like, what the fuck's going on here? But yeah. We talked about that on a couple of shows last week, and then now space is up. And during that 7 days, I had this thing where I won 3 nights, but the third night I connect. Okay, there's no time. This is perfect. I use Morgan and I as that's where my go-to. Okay, no space, so I'm there. Boom. And I went right from consciously meditating to lucid dream state in consciousness with the body. It was, and I was getting that this is where you guys are going, and it's right here. It's right here.
Yeah,
that's why
it's so accessible, so available.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you about your book, but I didn't realize all that had happened. Does it feel like that? Maybe part of the reason that you were told stop, so you could go, assimilate everything that you have. Why? I guess I put it this way: the words that you're going to write now will be different than the words you would have written had you not been stopped.
Yeah. And I only literally have one final chapter to complete it. Like everything was done. So I only have one chapter, and it's funny because I have two people editing for me, helping me out with the editing process. And I'm not great with grammar, punctuation. When I write, it's such a stream of consciousness that it needs tidying up, just so that it makes sure that it makes sense and it reads properly. And funnily enough, at the time that I got told stop, you can't write anymore, the two people that were editing had blockages and they couldn't edit. So it almost like put a capstone over it.
Wow.
No. And then when I felt the frequency come through, I think it was 2 nights ago, I actually had the dialogue, because when I write it, it's a dialogue that I hear. And I heard the dialogue come through for the final chapter, and I was like, oh, I'm ready now. Like, it's time. And then I noticed on the document that one of the wonderful woman that is helping me edit had gone on last night and started editing some of the final channel. I was like, okay, the channel's back open.
Yeah. The synchronistic aspect of connectivity has been showing itself more and more and more in like situations like that, right?
Yeah.
Like it's becoming even like your uniqueness and like the uniqueness of your experience. Those things are becoming more accepted. People are realizing that this is the norm. I don't know how to put it, but I think a lot of it's unconscious in this as we transition, as we evolve. But to think of like, we always think in terms of, we were conditioned to think in terms of lesser, like, or what's going wrong, or what's slowing us down, or what pushed us back. But that whole, it's working the other way now. So the way this thing exponentializes and grows, like, I can't remember anything. I can't remember how it used to be. So how can you even think about what it's going to be? It's crazy. It's absolutely insane.
Have you been having a lot of contact with like different beings? Has that been part of your experience over no?
Since when? Since
December, late December through to now.
Oh, late December. The only thing I haven't had anything that was a specific species, but I've had okay, so since I reawoke in 2011 up until December, that period you're talking about, actually, up until right around say Christmas, um, I had these periods or these situations where this golden white light with a little bit of rose will
Mm-hmm.
do that.
Mm.
Just, I swear, I swear to God, I swear to God, that just happened. But it only happened like maybe a dozen times. And
Mm.
then somewhere around the solstice, Christmas, I've probably had 8 of those. And I've
Mm.
had it
Mm.
happen on 3 shows.
Mm.
Um, but with that, in my room, when I lay down, you know, uh, it fills up and they're all golden.
Mm.
And the only other thing than that is I've been talking to Morgan, and this would be in the past week, and I think it was 2 different times, orbs.
Mm.
Uh, and there was one orb, and it was I've never seen the color before. It was like a blue green,
Mm.
and then the second time it came, it wasn't a circle. It was some kind of like amoeba looking thing. I don't know, but other than that, I haven't had any. How about you?
I just, as you were talking, I had a flashback from my dream last night.
Did you really? So here we go.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I was just, oh my goodness. Yeah, it was busy last night. Yeah, I've had more conscious contact than I have in years, and it's been a continual flow of different aspects of myself, different beings, or different aspects of people that I interact with, which has kind of been cool and trippy at the same
Wow.
time. But I spoke about it on another show with Linda, being physically taken around the end of December. And I don't really remember the last time that happened to me. Um, and so when I came back in the morning, like I always know the feeling of when I've been gone. And I would know that I get worked on, my energy gets worked on. I've never seen, I always have an awareness of it. I don't often see it. But I just knew when I came back, my stomach was so sore and tender. My womb was so sore and tender. I went, oh my God, like I feel like I've been hit by a truck. And it always makes me feel incredibly nauseous.
Mm.
And I was driving back we were at the beach, and a friend of mine and me, and I said, I think you're going to have to drive. I'm in, I'm not here. Like I'm not in my body. It's going to take me a few hours to come back. I feel really off. I feel very vulnerable. Like I feel like I've just had surgery. And so we were driving back, and I looked down at my leg, and I was like, oh, I've got this 3 dots on my ankle, like
What?
three very
Oh,
distinct dots on my ankle. And I looked at it and I'm like, that's not a bite. That's not a bite. And I'm like, and all of a sudden my friend looked at me and she goes, is that an acupuncture point?
wow.
And I was like, I don't know, but I'll look it up. So I had a look and I killed myself laughing. It was an acupuncture point for the reproductive system. And I was like, well, that's clever. That's clever.
Wow.
And then I went through a very big expansion of energy and like physical integration through my process after that. And it was very, very noticeable and it was very joyful. It was almost like I was holding that frequency like I haven't been able to do in such a long time, especially probably in the last 3 years. So after that, it's just been one experience after the next, and it's been quite conscious, more so than ever before. Um, but I had several times I've had these beings from Vega come and talk to me, um, and that was the night that the experience happened. But I went and lay down, and boom, like I just had this being come straight up into my face. She had the most beautiful energy. Like she was stunning. She had feminine energy, and she just had such an luminous, colored skin, almost a bit like my ring.
Mm.
Like it had that
Yeah.
essence to it. And she just like put her face right up into mine and just really gently said, there's a war going on out there. And I was like, huh?
Whoa.
And she said, but it's okay. Everything's going to be all right. And then boom, I was kind of lifted out of my body. And I came back in, and then I had another experience just about a week ago where I'm laying down, and then boom, she'll come at, and she said, the war's still going on out there, but it's okay. It's wrapping up now. And yeah, just a lot of this information about how our weather has been so manipulated because it's kind of cloaking the sky. It's like kind of keeping things out of view while things get wrapped up out in the very inner atmosphere of Earth, is how I understand it. There's kind of like a final showdown that's about to conclude, if it hasn't already. So yeah, and I just kind of giggle to myself in my human form, because it's like I wouldn't even think of these things. Like that's not something on my radar, or I'm thinking about, my day to day.
Does she feel like someone you know?
Mm,
She
very
does.
much so. Yeah, 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 yeah. And that's probably the first time I've had conscious contact with her. But her energy is very familiar, so I think she's been around a long time. So her, and then I've had like another Arcturian elder being very present. They sort of come in for like a series of 3 days, and then they disappear. And I feel like I know their human avatar, like I know their human embodiment, and that's just an aspect of them on a higher realm. Um, and so the Arcturians have always been around me since 2000, probably longer, but consciously since 2015. And they're the ones that feed me a lot of the information of how I can go about my work. They always give me these techniques or things that I can do in the energetic field to help support people through the integration process. And they're coming through with just like a whole new way of working that I've never experienced before. And it's very exciting, but it's like trying to, I'm trying to think of an analogy. It was like, I was working in this range and bandwidth, and now they've gone, okay, you're ready now. Boom, here's all this data, and we want you to go and explore all these other ways and means of doing things that are much more effective and conducive to where we are as a collective, and where
Mm.
everyone's energy is shifted to. So,
Mm.
mm,
Yeah, that lends to what some people have kind of talked about, which is, uh, I guess, December up until the end of this month.
mm,
Some people go into April, but some of this is astrological based, some of it's downloaded. Morgan's talked about March
mm.
something. I spoke March 10th last night. That's your birthday, her birthday. I'm just in that session. I was like, March 10th is the date of conception. Because I was being shown like how the whole masculine field was now meeting, and what's going to happen, and yeah. But but anyway, the overall gist of what they talk about or they're referring to is kind of an incubation period, a training period.
Yeah.
She uses that term. My friend and her, Ty and her both use the term container,
Mm.
building a new container
Mm-hmm.
with the new coding. So a lot like your book, you were
Yeah.
you were evidently meant to write the book up to that point,
Mm.
and so just consider the completion of it to be an independent new creation, and yet you
Mm.
were held off until the new coding was fully integrated and your awareness was at the point where you can now channel it or whatever, connect to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I can feel that happening. It feels like a lull, like an incubation, like a hibernation. But you're working, you're taking steps, small baby steps, and they're getting a little bigger this month than last month. Not much, but
A little bit. Yeah.
yeah, I can feel that.
I think the words that I keep getting repeatedly is strengthening. Like it's strengthening the inner core of the energy channel. It's building um the word just escaped me, but it's like, yeah, building the strength in the column so that it can be utilized and expressed in the way that it was always intended to. So it has to have time for that to sort of solidify, I guess.
Right, right. Yeah, because in the more time that's going on, the more I don't just say it to myself, but I actually feel it. It's actually all in here, right? And so, like what you're talking about, I I hadn't really thought about it, but now that you said that, to me, it's almost like because it's like that being that presented herself. She's familiar. This stuff is familiar. I can feel it. I can feel my kindredness with it or my familiarity with it. So it's almost like muscle memory. If you haven't worked, you start using your legs or your arms, you haven't used them in years and years, and that memory's still there, and they build back up, whatever. But something like that. I keep having these visual and non-visual sensations of either swimming or flying, but it's not just swimming and flying. It's actually it feels like swimming and flying, but it's moving energy, like creating vortexes and building stuff. And do you get that? That just started happening to me. That just started happening, and it feels really familiar.
Yeah. I think I had 3 days sometime in January where I was just swimming in energy and felt like I couldn't land anywhere because I was just in the ethers, just doing this spinning motion, and I was getting really frustrated. I was like, I actually need to do some stuff here. I need to be productive. But it was just this energy that was just swimming. And it was very playful. It was very joyful. I think you said it well. I think we're just learning to walk and navigate in a new world, and it's almost like we're infants or child. Yeah. It's very being reborn.
Well, I mean, okay. The area, the root, the lower chakras, the womb, these are all things that you're tapped into. And also with what's been experienced by everybody very recently. What else could there be? If that gross contraption thing, whatever that you were talking about, or however other people saw it, has been transformed or removed or whatever the case is, if the channel's wide open now, and I realize it never ends, but something ended at that 10 years or going into 2023, however you look at it. What else could there be? If the root was infected, just like your description, which covered the heart and even on right, I mean, if that was the point of origin and it's gone, what's left? Or is there anything left? Is it just our ego?
Look, I don't know. I really don't know. I think after I went, because I had attempted to remove that for myself over a course of many weeks. And it was very hard and confusing for me because when I work with someone else, or even if I'm in proximity with someone else, I'm so attuned like my sensitivity is so attuned these days that I almost merge with everyone that I interact with and I become their energy.
Wow.
and I can feel all the static in the body. I can feel the emotions. I can feel the, like, it's very highly tuned at the moment. It's kind of hard and tricky to navigate um, at times. And so what I was noticing was every time I felt like it had almost popped out of the back and cleared, I would then feel it again, but then it was navigating, like, am I picking up on this client or this
Mm.
friend that I, like, because I would feel it come back and then I would go, oh, actually, I'm vibrating at their frequency and I'm feeling into the subtleties of what they're experiencing. Um, but I had to do, I felt like there were energetic overlays of people that I've connected with in the past that I'd had an energetic merging with, and it felt like there was a energetic overlay of my
Mm-hmm.
connection with them that was experiencing that same thing. And so I had to kind of work through multiple levels of energy body to be able to fully extract it. But once I did that, I went through a whole energetic birthing process. So it felt like contraction and labor pains that went all night. And it was literally the energy trying to sink down from the sacral into the base and then out through my body. And I was hearing at the time when that was going on, and this is about a week ago, went all night. It said, you're now birthing the new you.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm. As the
So I
individual
think,
goes, so goes the collective. Yes. Good news. I'll keep going. I didn't.
yeah, so I think that that's probably a process that many people are going through, and it'll
Yeah.
just look different in,
Yeah.
different ways.
Yeah.
It'll come through in our own context of understanding and how we interpret and embody energy. But I think January is about rebirthing ourselves into a new frequency so that we can play into the world, or be playful in the world in our highest expression. I think that's this push of what was last year and moving into this year. We had to, like, release all the shackles and the cords and the memories and the fuckery,
Everything. Everything.
so that we can get to this point now.
It was a bloodbath.
Yeah,
Truly.
it was
I mean,
horrible.
I mean, I joke about it. I always think that the last year we had was the best ever, and I still think that. 2022 is hot, though. It was hot. I kept saying this summer's going to be hot. I didn't know why I was saying it, and then I feel like at the end I just came in. You know that old that adage that comes out on a meme. I think it's Atticus. I want to arrive to my death totally spent and a little bit drunk. And you just see this picture of this guy. He's just. That's what I feel like 2022 though coming out. But I feel like a month of January, I can feel my. I don't want to sound like I was like ill but I wasn't 100%, and I don't think a lot of people were. Uh, and now I feel like wow, uh, healthy. Like you can feel something going on every day too. Yeah, very cool.
You
So,
look good. You look clear.
huh? Thank you.
Yeah.
So, when do you think you'll finish your book? Do you know?
I don't think it'll take me long because when I'm in the flow state, like, I can churn out content really, really quickly. If I'm not in the flow state, it's like pushing uphill.
You might as well
um,
forget it.
huh?
You might as well forget it.
Yeah,
If you're having
and
fun
I've
there
just
these days. Yeah,
no,
not
no, no,
not
no.
being in the flow and accepting that it's okay to sleep 10 hours a day.
Mm,
I mean, you know what I
hmm.
mean? Like
Yeah.
several people I talked to in the last couple of weeks talked about that. And this happened to me. I think I slept 10 hours. I used to sleep 4 to 6 hours for years and
Mm,
years and years. And,
hmm.
but I'm not having any problem with accepting it because I
No.
know I need it. And when I first got into it, when it intensified, like the first few days, like especially like when that 7 day period,
Mm,
every day I wake up, my third eye, all my
mm.
face is peeling. I told Morgan, she's like, "Oh, that's what happens to old men." No, but I'm kidding. I made that up. But I used to think that. Why do old men always have that? But every morning I was so dehydrated. But I started drinking a bunch of water, and I started listening. Okay, you're going to go to sleep.
Yeah.
You're going to sleep
Yeah.
10 hours. Oh, you wake up at 8. You don't have to anything to do till 11. Well, go ahead and sleep another hour if you can. And now I'm not having any issues, and I hope that stays that way. I'm tired.
And I think that's part of the incubation, is that we need to rest and sleep and recalibrate, because I think a lot of work happens when we're like our physical body is resting, and I think we just need to be, while we're sleeping, we can be in a more surrendered, allowing state than when
Yeah,
we're
right.
awake.
Do with me what you want, and I won't even know. I won't even know. Yeah, isn't that the truth? And I'm finding too that falling asleep is, except for a couple of nights, has been really easy. Like I'm looking forward to it. Not because I want to sleep, because I don't, because my mind's like going, oh, let's do something. But it's more like I know that I've got stuff to do. Like I can feel, like you were talking about. Of course, that's a little different, but yeah, very cool. Well,
most nights when I go to bed, I kind of set the intention that I go into my healing chamber, so that the work that I'm currently working on can continue while I sleep. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think the programming for our, or like the intentions, or even programming ourselves, or setting intentions for our dream state is a smart thing, very smart thing. And I'm not saying I've done it forever. I've played with it off and on over the years, but man, it sure did wonders last week. Like,
Right?
it did. I mean, I was tripping out. I was like, whoa. I mean, I vividly lucid dream, like lucid dream. I saw the house. I saw her. You know, I'm like, wow, this is cool. I'm digging it. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Well,
That's beautiful.
it was really good seeing you, catching up with you again.
Thanks.
Yeah. Hope to
I
see
always
you.
love a good chat with you.
Oh, I know you're awesome to talk to. Yeah, I really admire your work and your courage and your bravery, and I can't wait till your book comes out. And I don't even
Well,
read.
I hopefully at this point I'd like to have it published on a very special date, which just happens to be the 10th of March. So I'm working I'm working towards that at the moment, but we'll see. We'll
That's
see.
a very
I
significant
realize
day.
I'm not on my own personal timeline. My human timeline I have to go with.
Yeah, you have to go. Well, I think that's part of this new, the new way we create. We already know that we can't plan anything. You can't strategize, and you can't do the old 3D, type of. I think part of it, as I'm discovering in myself, is letting go of how you think it should be done. Like even this morning, I kept hearing, "You know what it looks like. You know what it looks like." It's just talking about my life in general, like the house, the woman, the business, everything, and you. But let go of how you get there, because in other words, like it was like we're going to unfold that, or we're going to give that to you each step of the way. Each step, for each degree that you let go, you get a degree of magic. So.
It feels like Tetris at the moment. It's like one piece has to come in to play before the next gets presented, then the next and the next. And that's what I've recorded a series of interviews that I will start to publish as of today or tomorrow.
Really?
And I've been working on a little side project all through January, and I was told that I had to get that done, because that talks about the level of depth of the darkness that has been experienced on this planet, to flip it and bring it into light, and to go into some very controversial topics and things that people don't want to talk about. So I've kind of been in the depths of that, and I was told that had
Is it you on camera? You're talking?
Yeah.
Like, wow.
Yeah.
See, that sounds cool to me. I like that. Like I was asking Morgan yesterday, what do you think about me doing a men's group like the group she does, right? And trying something different. because I have this real, like, after looking at all that stuff you're talking about, like, because it must be up, you know, I'm like, well, why don't we just rip the Band-Aid off? Why don't we talk about it in terms like like a group of men? Let's talk about in depth pornography, uh, molestation, uh, uh, performance, intimacy, and really get down to it. You know, and recognize that this is all a program, and does it have? And if we think it doesn't have a handle on us, you don't have to watch porn every day or even ever to not be affected by what I'm talking about. But yeah, I want to get down and, I don't mean to sound right, but down and dirty with it all, and let's get this thing done. But that feels like what your project was. So I'm going to be looking for that. You're going to put it out on social media? You're going to put it out? You're going to put it
What
out
was that?
You're going to put it out on social media?
Yeah, it'll be on all the platforms. So
Okay, cool.
it's all the topics that people don't want to look at that are very hard to digest, and it's something that's very, very special to my heart. It's something that I've had to work through the experiences of in my own personal life, not directly but indirectly, and it's a fusion, a mixture of many. And I was told that I could no longer kind of be silent about these things, and conversations that I have in private, that it had to be made public and go to the level of depth, and that it was time. And I was told very specifically it had to be released in February.
Whoa.
So I'm just doing what I'm doing myself, just like giving the orders. I'm like, right, well.
I know that.
But there was, there was a divine consciousness that really brought this project together, and I wasn't in control of it. I was just the vessel that it was being kind of channeled through. And I got to the end of the interviews and I actually broke down because I didn't realize the enormity of what I had taken on. Like, it was just me in human do mode, like, just get this done, just get this done. And I think 2 or 3 times when I kind of lost my momentum in it, I had come face to face with people who are very, very near and dear to me, who have personally endured some of the most horrific things that a human being should never go through.
Wow.
And I kind of broke down and I was like, that's why I'm doing this. This is giving voice to every child or every inner child that has never verbalized the amount of depravity and abuse, and this has to come to light before we can fully as a collective move forward and heal. Like, and that was sort of my drive to keep going. It was like I lost momentum, and I broke down in my kitchen, and I was like, I feel like in my own way, we all do what we can. I feel like I'm giving a voice to those who don't or haven't yet had a voice, and that includes me.
That's powerful.
So,
there's a guy on YouTube. I think maybe beyond YouTube. Underbelly. He talks to people that nobody would talk to. Like, I mean, it's eye opening. Yeah, and I always think about that lady that she's from Australia. She came on like 3 years ago, and her project at the time was, she was a healer and everything, but she had transformed, or something had happened. So 6 months prior, she started working with people that were victims of human trafficking. And so she's like telling us about like one lady that she was in it for years and escaped, and they got her back, and man, it was just like, whoa, And I said to her, what are these people like? And she said, they're the strongest souls I've ever met. She said they literally, she goes, I know. She's like, that lady I was just telling you about that got captured twice. She said that lady came in and in the first 5 minutes let the healer know she had nothing but love for her perpetrators. I'm like, mind blown. So Yeah. It
Yeah.
doesn't really
Yeah.
soften the blow a lot because that stuff is still straight up fuckery. And
Yeah.
I want to challenge that it hasn't been done outside of this realm. We're going to be going to the next galactic multiversal convention representing Earth, the Earth contingent, and being like, "Hey, man, has anybody else experienced this stuff? I mean, I don't have it in my memory banks. Is there a place like the Earth? Yeah. What looks?
I do want to share one thing.
Yeah.
I have someone who I know quite well, and I met many years ago, and she came to me through like a synchronicity sort of alignment meeting. And at that time, I didn't have the level of depth of understanding of what she was going through or had been through, still going through. And we lost contact. There's a lot to it, and I don't want to go into it because obviously it's highly personal. But she had weighed on my mind so much for years, and I felt like I had failed her. I felt like she had come to me in a time that she was reaching out and in need, in a very desperate situation. And I didn't do everything in my power to hold space for her or support her. And for some reason, it just weighed so heavy on my heart when I thought about it. We reconnected this year, and I was able to express that to her. And we had a very tearful moment, a lot of tears, and a lot of conversation and a lot of sharing. And she said, and I said to her, I'm sorry, I felt like I failed you. Like I didn't do everything that I could. I didn't understand. I didn't have the understanding that I do now. I couldn't comprehend what you were going through. And she said to me, she said, our last interaction that we had when we met up, and it's one of those people that we kind of randomly bump into each other every couple of years, and it's just like the universe throws our realities and collides together. She said, I haven't interacted with anyone since the last time I saw you, and it was that interaction and the kindness that you showed me that has kept me going for the last 4 years.
Wow.
Mm.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
And my perception was I didn't do enough, and from her perception, just the simplistic things that we did, was something that she could hold on to get through the harder times. And it's just mind blowing. And I was really touched by that because I
see.
had no
That's
idea.
those are the real heroics. You know, the things that we never get in the headlines, right? These are like, can you imagine the power? I mean, because we're really, that's one way to look at it. We're going from sweep everything under the rug,
Yeah.
especially when you're talking about something like this,
Mm.
which I can't relate to, but I know many, many women, many, Morgan included. I mean, but could you imagine, which would be something you would see, in as we keep expanding, people coming to the obvious victim where they were not supported, where they actually come and say, you know what, I did know what was going on, or you know what, I was in fear. I mean, these are the kind of eruptions, I believe, and I'm speaking like as a metaphor, but it could be literal.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is a kind of transformational energy that we're experiencing. It's mind blowing. I can't wait to see your series. How many pieces is it?
7 episodes.
7 episodes. Very cool.
Yeah.
I like your work,
Yeah.
and I love your consistency out there too, and your the substance of your work. I can't wait to see it. It's gonna be awesome.
Thank you. The
My
final
too.
thing I want to say is, random acts of kindness, you never understand the full potential of what you do for another when you can just hold space. It's the simple things. But I truly believe in what we're uncovering in this thick of this depths of darkness and fuckery. That's the one summary word. It's like
That's right.
I've always said that children that I'm bringing through and women like me are bringing through can never come fully through into the physical realm and be birthed until we bring what has been done to humanity in terms of sexual abuse and child trafficking and the atrocities that have happened to children on this planet for eons. Once that comes to light and is fully, the rug has been lifted and everyone can see it for what it has been, and that can start to heal on a collective level, then it opens the pathway for these new children to fully come through. And I think that's where my strength comes from, because I've always known that. So it's had to take me down into some dark places to alchemize energy and bring things forward, and that's been uncomfortable. But that's my motivation. That's what I
That's
understand.
you. That's you. In this, I mean, that's you. You just said it. You said a lot. You really did. Yeah, and you know, we talked about this too in the last few days. Like, the romance is leaving. I don't mean the romance between two people, but that could be applied. But the romance, the false romance of life, the way we romanticize things and look the other way. For instance, what you're talking about is way beyond some 1% Illuminati, Jesuits, or Vatican. It's way beyond that. We're talking about something that's in almost every household. Something that's
I was about to say it's right in our backyard.
right, and it's really what we talked about, what you described, that thing, right?
That thing.
I mean,
Yes.
that thing, right? But I mean, but really think about it. Look, if you look at and you non-romanticize, even some indigenous populations, they sacrifice children. They were okay. So we get that, but we also get it was a program. But who the fuck did it? Who was that? Was it other aspects that were smarter than us, or was it us as souls in other bodies that did this and did that? And I think that's where we've come full circle. Is that when we realize that this isn't just a correction? Hey, these other ones, they don't have it all figured out. You know what I mean? They're part of this, so everything's getting corrected. But the way you ended what you said, I think says it all. And that is that for those women like yourself who have the role that you do, you will not allow, the universe will not allow, the child will not allow the birth to actually happen until everything is right, and you and those like you are the steward of that.
Yeah. It's a big cleanup operation that's been in progress.
That's right. That's right.
And everyone has played such an integral role. Like, I wrote a post yesterday and I was like, thank you everyone for your tireless service to humanity. Through every interaction, through every expression, through every emotion, through every breakdown, we're all steering this collective into this new reality so that everyone can enjoy.
Yeah. Righteous. Goodbye for the third time. What?
Huh?
What'd you say?
I said you're the best. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. And I look forward to seeing you again before your birthday. How's that?
Yay! That'd be great.
All right. See you. Bye.